Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience and Pinagigi Curtis before you even get started for stealing today's show. So, welcome to Public Health's
I hear you okay?
virtual education series, Wazooki Wu Ehi, Family Conversations. I'm Renelle, public health nurse, and joined by Jamie Decora, public health worker supervisor. You may have noticed that we are doing things a little bit differently today with a hybrid session. Jamie will be helping the out in person, and I will be moderating the online portion and try to navigate any tech issues. The goal of this series is to gather, learn, and share about Ho Chunk culture, resources, services, and the connection to health. In public health, we focus on prevention, promotion, and the protection of the health and well being of our communities. Health and well being are rooted in many aspects of our lives, from our physical body, our mental health, our spirit, and the environment we live in, and much more. During these sessions, we will explore topics that can impact our health and well being. Together, we will learn about tools and resources to improve our health and the health of our communities. Today we have Curtis Redbird to save the day to talk to us a little bit about Ho Chunk culture. We'll have about 45 minutes for the presentation, followed by some questions and answers. For those of you online, please put any questions in the chat and we'll help get those over to Curtis. This session is recorded and will be posted on our Facebook page and the Department of Health website. Everyone, please welcome Curtis.
Greetings, everybody. Hanicheta Haipi. My name is Curtis Redbird. I live here in Black River Falls. I'm born and raised here. Right where this building is actually where I grew up hunting. You know, connection to your land is important. You know, we learned this as children. We learned this growing up. My parents never said go play outside. And when they did, it was because we were just bouncing off the walls in the house, just like any other children. But our playground was vast. You know, our imaginations were allowed to expand, explore. You know, we were allowed to create. You know, we could manifest things of a multitude of different degrees when you're thinking of children, dragons, sci-fi, science fiction. You know, child's mind just seems to blossom and grow the more creative they get. So obviously, I'm very creative, as you can tell. And I'd also like to thank you guys for your attention. This isn't something that I prepared to do. I was actually coming here as a guest. I do know Jamie over here. I've worked with her throughout the years and a little bit of my background. I suppose I should have started with some of that, but I worked with Jamie in youth services. I worked in youth services for, I gotta say, 5 years. I did 3 years over in social services, child CPS, child protective services. I worked over in community life skills. I did life skills for, I gotta say, 3, 4 years, and I've been now back at the Department of Labor as a case manager for the Ho Chunk Nation Federal Force 77 program. Last year, August, this month, I accepted a new position. I applied, and I am now the program manager for the Elder Workforce Division. That work ethic right there started in the Department of Labor. When I was a child growing up working, it's just what everybody did. You know, we all got outside when dad would burn grass. We'd all go outside when dad would want to rake leaves. We'd all be together. You know, the family orientated programming, I guess, wasn't intended for, but my dad showed us a lot. That dynamic is now, due to so many other outside influences, that's at risk now. You have the internet, you have not just TV anymore, you got social media, you know, you have all these other platforms of communication that people use. The world is a little louder than it used to be. But we as a Ho Chunk people, we've been here let's see, 3 ice ages, from what I was told when I was a child. 3 ice ages. The Native American timeline, I guess, how I looked at it is if you drew a line here across the wall, only the first portion, just bear with me, of our line here, that's Ho Chunk history. This is where we're at in written history. This is how long we've been here as a people. Established communities, established lifestyles, established routines, hunting, gathering. We knew not to over harvest resources, deer, woods, things of that nature, things that we take for granted nowadays. Nowadays, who's lived in the same house for at least 10 years? Anybody? Everybody? And the communities that we come from, that's the societal norm. But a lot of people, we're all lacking here is this big question mark here nowadays. It's like the rest of the world. This is where our history is now. We have oral history that'll take us back here, there, but it's a question mark what happened before that. So when you look at the concept of the world, history, discussions, Native Americans have been here from the beginning. We have words for the mammoth. We have words for the long-toothed cat. We have, clans. I'm a water spirit. Everybody assumes that, but I guess another term in English is thunder lizard. We're part dinosaur. Knowing your clans, where you come from, is very important to the community and your tribe. And that's every community, every tribe, because our clans help us determine a healthy lifestyle for future generations. Uppers marry lowers, lowers marry uppers. These things nowadays, they say, well, people don't live that way anymore. We marry by last name. Our association is with everything European. The way we talk, my language here, my first language was Ho Chunk. You couldn't tell today. I mean, I can read it on paper and say the words out loud, but like many people, I'm trying to regain my knowledge of that language portion too. So it's not just you and we that struggle with these things, but together we have started preservation projects. We have started programs, education departments, labor departments. All these resources that we have here available to us that weren't available 50 years ago. I remember standing over by the commod shop, we call it, over here in the Mission. There was 50 of us lining up, parents and children signing our name on a piece of paper. When I was just a little kid, my Jaji, Gordon Thunder, was over at my house before they did that, before they handed out, I guess, turkeys. But what they were performing was a census. We were getting ready to push the boundaries to become the Ho Chunk Nation from the Winnebago, Ho Chunk Winnebago. This was going to be our chairman. That's what he was running for. He won. I mean, he won. Gordon did. Onagita, Choka there, or Jaji there, my dad. I was my dad's older brother, Gordon Thunder. Anyways, from that point forward, we adopted and accepted more from the outside world as to how we perform and how we carry ourselves in our everyday lives. Now, having been raised Native American church by my father and my Chewies, I made the transition when I was in adulthood in my 20s. I had 3 kids at home, and I found the creator in our traditional lodge. Well, they say traditional, but in our lodge, in our home. That front fire there, things were explained to me in the first 5 years, 6 years, and I'm still learning every day. Every time I go to Kigo, I'm learning something else. But they say, learn something, teach something. You know, my friend over here, Daryl, he works with us. But you know, he was interested to see what we do as a Ho Chunk people, and far as that side of the circle, the way us traditional folk, they call us, walk and carry, I guess. But I invited him over. He sat with us, and they put him to work. Had him scraping for it. It was a pretty cool ordeal, and then I realized that that's something we've always been in this state, in this world, in our existence. Ho Chunk people have always been leaders. Our language, our culture is a melting pot of. It's an accumulation of years and years of tribal relations with other tribes. We have a Heidushka way of life, you know, our big drum society. You know, in our traditional lodge, we use a little water drum. In the Native American church, they use a tiny little drum. But however it goes, that drum came to all of our tribes, and we shared that knowledge amongst each other. You know, my choka chatera, wanagita wanik shujaga, you know, that man there, Redbird, that's where I hail from. That was my choka chatera. That was my great grandfather, Chief Redbird. His son, Frank Redbird, that's my choka. That's my choka's dad. See, these are things that when I talk about that those are the type of things that we need to remember. How many generations did I just go back? I'm not doing it to be a braggart or to tell you, but how many generations do you go back in your head? You know, I mean, these are the types of things that Native Americans just knew at one time. You know, and some of the old guys I learned from, a lot of them have walked. A lot of my Chunshkes were older than me. They all walked. And all that knowledge they had went with them. And that's okay. That's part of growth. But we maintain that identity, that Ho Chunk identity. Whether we're out here sitting at the big drum singing, we have songs for that now. Whether we're sitting in, you know, our traditional warrior lodge, giving feasts in there, praying, singing songs, asking for things, or if we're in a Native American church in God's house. These are all God's houses. It's just how we identify personally that defines what these homes are. So they say when you find God, you'll know it. I found God in our traditional lodge. No, he was just there for me. Like my elders before me, when they went to the Native American church, they found God in there and it just made sense to them. Doesn't make it evil. Just it's a different part of who we are as the Ho Chunk people. They wanted to talk about resources we have. Well, she reached out here to Heritage Preservation, and they are an amazing resource. I'm not doing anything that they could have discussed or talked about. I'm not doing it any justice for the amount of work that they do. But since it's Ho Chunk Heritage Month, from my perspective here, you know, they call this place Neochawani. When I was growing up, we called it the Mission, or Black River Falls, or we called it we had another name for it too. Swirling water. It'll come to me. Like everything else, it's just out of mind, out of sight. But a lot of these things, I mean, if you look back at past life experiences growing up, I'm 47 years old. I guess I really didn't know any other way than the way I walked my whole life. But that path has taken me to city council in Black River Falls. I was an alderman for 4 years. I left there, I went to the county. When I was in the county, I was a supervisor there, county board supervisor. I did that for 2 years. Tried to fight the mine. I didn't try. I fought the mines. I said no to mines. I got tired of expecting other people to do the things that I thought needed to be done. I heard Black River Falls Police Department was a joke, and when I went joined city council, it was a joke. Pretty much all the staff got fired or retired. We brought in all new staff. We rebuilt the city of Black River Falls from the ground up. That's a little friendlier place to be. It's still, but it's getting better. When I was there, they were real curious about the Ho Chunk people. They thought that all we had was casinos. I remember one guy asking if we had teepees out in the mission. And I'd like to say that's ignorant of it. It can't be ignorant because they don't know. It's ignorant of us to say they're ignorant. This is what we got to do is maybe embrace them a little bit and say, hey, there's no teepees out here. You might find some wigwams, be realistic with them, some dogs, no more horses running around anymore. My brother doesn't sell horses or train horses no more, so those aren't running around the mission. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I mean, we're natives. We hunt this bottom, we hunt the woods, I guess it's just Ho Chunk. And it doesn't matter if I go down to Wisconsin Dells, I can't be anything else. My dad said that when I was a kid. I was traveling, I was doing county board and stuff. And all he said to me is just remember wherever you go in this life, you can't be anything else but Ho Chunk. Because I was up in Bad River with my Moss people for a while and picking up on their culture, respected my mother's people, the Bad River Ojibwe tribe. Those are my mother's people. But going back to Ho Chunk culture, she's not really Ojibwe anymore now, is she? Do you see where I'm going with this? So Ho Chunk culture dictates that when I marry a woman, regardless of her race, creed, or color, she becomes Ho Chunk. I hear a lot about culture, and I hear a lot of resentment, and I get that. I didn't write the rules. I didn't establish these acts. I didn't sit down and this is just what my elders told me. She's Ho Chunk now. My daughters, bless their little beautiful souls. My one daughter has a child with a Baikare fella. And she was talking. I was like, no. I said, that's his son. I said, that's his child. I said, I'll always love my grandchild. I said, but my son belongs with his dad because that's Ho Chunk. We follow our fathers. You know how hard that was to say that to my daughter, but that's the way it is. And then, so she told her boyfriend that, and the boyfriend come around, and this is how things go full circle. And he says, no, Mr. Redbird, hey, could you, he said, I don't know how to ask you. He's like, but I want him to learn your ways. That's what that Machare guy said. And I thought about it. And I was like, yep. I just thought about like, trying to have a little fun with him. But no, I mean, immediately I said yes. So this guy is bringing my grandchild back to the family. And I accepted him. So now I'll name him, and he'll be part of our group again. But these things, these lessons, how do you explain that to somebody that has never experienced it? How many of you guys have uncles for your kids? Like, don't be ashamed. How many of you say uncle? If you're sitting there with my brother Michael, come here, you're my brother for a second. That's my brother Michael. My son here, right? Hey, dad. He looks at Michael and says, uncle. I'm like, hey. Sorry, didn't mean to yell that loud. But I'll say something to my son right away. No. That's your dad. And if you look at me like, well, no, you're no. We're Ho Chunk. There's no uncles. There's a Dega. There's a Chewy. But that's your dad. That's my little brother. Jaji Chonoi. It's your little dad right there. Oh, and all my sons, and I can proudly say this, my oldest brother, Tom, older than I am, but Cora was born. The moment Cora was born, after she was born, my dad received a phone call, and my dad called us, and mom was packing, and where are we going? So, oh, Tom or Melissa had her baby. Oh shit! And I looked at Hannah and I gave her a big hug, and we kind of start crying, because we could feel the joy. Our brother, even though he's 5 hours away, we could feel his emotion, and we were happy, and then excuse me, like we messed up. And I said, Hannah, what kind of uncle or what kind of dig are you gonna be? And we were sitting there teasing each other, and my dad kind of scuffed me back of the head. And I said, what I do? He goes, no, 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 no. He said, that's not your nephew. He said, that's your son. Or your daughter. Sorry, Cora. Sorry. But that's your daughter. So then we looked at each other, and that was it. Cora grew up having four dads, sorry. And she doesn't know any different. Thomas, same way. Stephen, Carmen, all our kids. I'm just telling you if you don't do that, you're going to lose that. As much as I can tell you things, and maybe you want me to tell you ancient family wisdom, I wish I had it. I wish I knew what my elders knew. But no one knows what they knew, because when they walked, they took that with them. So we try to learn, and we do our best to try to be the people that they were. When we talk about what they faced, and then how we try to be an example, somewhat of an example of the kind of men that they were. Because that's what we try to strive to do, to be better men. Do you serve your community? Not for work. Do you guys go out and pick up garbage on the side of the road, even though it's like, is there a sense of community there? I mean, that's Ho Chunk. It's not crying for the land. It's just like you want your house to look like your neighbor's house, and you always want everybody to have what you have. But nowadays, I see a lot of, well, I have this, and I get it now. Now that I'm older, I didn't get it when I was a kid, when I was young. Another interesting fact about Curtis Redbird: I fought stage 4 cancer and I won. And after that perspective, now for the rest of my life, I'll always look at that, because I don't look at life the same way anymore. When I look at life, I look at, well, I have something nice, but if I see a guy walking, I'm not just going to drive by him. I mean, if it's a nice day, yeah, good luck, Chief. Good luck, Haas. I'll see you around, but if it's like cold out or super hot, I'll pick a random stranger up off the side of the road and say, hey, where do you want me to drop you off at? That doesn't make you Ho Chunk. It just gives you an understanding that these are people also. Maybe they're not. No, well, they're definitely not Ho Chunk. Ho Chunk's families, if you're going to struggle, we're going to struggle. If you have a hardship, we all have kind of carry that same burden. Loss, family, mourning, the things that we go through in life, individually, yes, you're right, that's a lot. But, when you actually pick your head up and look around and look at the runs around you, I mean, that's your family's right there. Some people don't have that. I can, one instance that just pops into my head at this time and moment is like my friend, my little brother here, Direwolf, he's out here on his own doing this life. He got out of college and he walked a path, and he made a decision and he made a choice and got through college. And then there was an opportunity, just like my wife, fresh out of college, moved to Black River Falls, Wisconsin. I kind of giggled about that, I mean, when I thought about it, my wife was like, yeah, oh, let's go to North Dakota. No, I don't want to go to North Dakota. It's too cold. let's go to Minnesota. No. She said, because she got her bachelor's degree in Minnesota. And after she got done with that, that's how I met her here in Blacker. So I think she's going south. I'm going with her because it's warmer down there. But the point is that um, when she met me, she was like Michael. She's by herself. Well, that's not true, but we're not going to go there. But the point is that we brought her in, not just the family, but my tribe did. My wife is Dr. Bethany Redbird. She works in the education department. Very brilliant, hardworking woman. Um, she is not from any federally recognized tribe. Her people are from North Dakota. She is a Caucasian heritage, and I love her more than life itself. Now, someone said, "Why didn't you marry a Ho Chunk girl?" Well, that's a little difficult for me. Um, related to the Wakanjutta, real close, like real super close with the Thunder Clan, right? I'm related to a lot of those families up there, like direct, like within 2 generations, not like, hey, a long time ago. But anyways, and I can't do that in the ground clans either because I'm a ground clan. So this is why we would marry outside the tribe. And that's why that was instituted back in the day. I figured. So when you married a young lady, she comes and she becomes part of your people because she leaves behind hers and her family. She takes on your identity. She gives you your children. She takes on your name. She takes care of your household. She is your, not my better half. She's just my other half. You know what I mean? And together we walk this world together now, side by side, together, however that works out. But a lot of it has to do with, just how my dad told me. And that, again, that goes back to being Ho-Chunk. How he explained life to me, how he explained that relationship and who she was and who she was becoming. She accepted those things. I mean, she sews, she cooks, she fry bread. She works hard for my tribe. I mean, most weeks she's working 70, 80 hours a week, for 40-hour a week pay. She does a thankless job, but that's life, right? Point of all that is that union, that companionship, that's what keeps our house together. That's why I was bringing that up. And that itself is Ho-Chunk. I have no right talking to my daughters about what they should be doing, how they should be doing things. That's their mom's job. If I have to say something, then that means mom, whatever mom's saying, you're not listening to. And you're going to regret me having to even say something to you. And my boys, whatever mom says, mom having a bed, you guys, and yes, mom, no, mom, yes, mom. They weren't allowed to sass their mom back. When the older sister, when Nuno got mad, the boys weren't allowed to argue with her. Just get away from her. If you guys can't get along, don't. I didn't force them to have the relationship I wanted them to have. Again, that's Ho-Chunk. Is accepting who they're going to be. My daughters, they have to cover themselves at home. My sons too. It's called respect for each other. I mean, the point of everything I'm telling everybody is the fact that who we were is still who we are. It's not gone. Some people just don't know the direction to go to do it. Well, you're already doing it. But if a person needs justification for an action, yeah, I'll tell them right now, you're doing a great job. Because life's already hard enough without having to worry about the judgment of others. Looking at how you live, looking at how you walk, looking at how you dress, looking at what you do. When my grandmother was a young lady, her husband, Ed, at the time. Just one of my gagas, I should say. And I'm not going to get into names too much, but the thing the family remembers the most about my gaga is that she was a hardworking woman, you know, and that's all the son knew about his mother. They didn't have like me, my mom, I tell my mom, I love you. I give her a hug, that's just what we do nowadays. But back then there was a divide there for a reason. You know, when you think back to those days, even if it wasn't really taught, we didn't hear a lot about bad relationships between people because there wasn't a lot of bad relationships between people. Alcohol influenced that. I mean, honestly, I can go right back. You could probably go back to the day that they took our first set of kids. My Choka Frank, he was one of them. A lot of our great grandparents, they were the first generation of boarding school victims. They were beaten. They were shamed. They were taught not to be proud of these things that I'm talking to you about today. That's why I said I'm not here so you guys can judge what I do. I'm just telling you that these are the things I learned from my elders, because that in itself is Ho Chunk. You pass on the teachings from when you were a kid to your grandkids, to your children, in the hopes that it makes them better someday. That's what our grandparents would help with. Mom and dad would be out, I guess it's working, but back in those days, what were you doing? Harvesting? Dad's out trying to catch fish or fish, and mom's out trying to get wood, get the lodge ready, get things clean. They're both doing something while the kids are sitting there learning how to do this stuff too. It wasn't staying Chipotle, we'll be right back. Hell no, you had to take them with you. This is why we have these handy dandy little, now they don't wear them anymore. Now we have those real fancy ones where they can strap your baby to your chest. And, back in the day, they had to put it out of wood and make this like 5-pound rig just to take your baby out to get to work. So again, you think about these things and you realize that it's all right there still. The sense of community, family, these are the areas that we're weak in. We have money, apparently. I have a job. But when I go out into my community, there's people out there that don't have jobs because they don't want to do what we do. And that's okay. Because there's even stuff for them to do. We were talking about diversifying funds and diversifying programs, diversifying. Well, we got to start here where it started, because that's Ho Chunk. We don't get this in order first. How are we going to help all these other people? And that doesn't go back to just me and mine being bright and shiny, because we know something the rest of you don't know. I see a lot of that too nowadays. Are people going like this too many times with these guys? You know, these are weapons. I was raised that's what they told you. You don't point at people. This is why we go, ooh, like I was pointing way over there, wasn't pointing at you, ma'am. No, it's behind you. But for instance, that's a lot of what we try to carry on. I mean, there's going to come a time and day. I faced it, where we're all going to face our mortality. Some people do that at a younger age in life. Some people do it towards the end of their life. But whenever we face it, from that point forward, things change. Perspectives change. What's important changed. Before, I just wanted to make money. I wanted to get a raise. I wanted to make money. I wanted to buy another house. I wanted to get my own business. I wanted to do all that shit. Then, yeah, I had a scary individual come check me. it really put me put me to work there. A sickness came for me, and when I got done with the end of that fight, and my eyes were open to what really is important. I look at the TV here, I see a lot of things, but none of us professionals, none of us people sitting here in positions to help others, none of this makes a difference if we don't focus on what matters, and that's our communities. Why are we spending $50 million a year on services when we can hardly get people to come into donors? Why aren't we out there with them where they're at? Makes more sense. I'm not saying it's going to work. It probably never worked. But that's Ho-Chunk, taking care of your people, looking after your elders. I said this my first day on the job to my boss. I was being kind of interviewed a little bit, and it's a very elder workforce division manager is a very, 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 it's a hard job to do. And it's not hard for the reasons that you guys think it's hard. I'm working with our elite elders, 70 plus years old. Okay. I'm 47. I got 20 years of work history. I'm real, 25, whatever you want to say, real proud of that. But these guys have worked 50, 60 years. I mean, what am I doing? So I'm trying to learn from them as much as, I'm trying to be their boss. I talk to Fran like I'm her friend. I mean, not as our boss. It's hard to work with people that have more knowledge than you. But just like that, acknowledging that's the first step. And it's okay not to know everything. And there's nothing wrong with asking a question if you don't know. You can ask a lot of our elders, and they'll tell you they're learning something new every day. As old as they are, they're still learning every day. Every day. My dad, Andy Thundercloud, I thought, we were talking one time. He said, shit, too skinny. He said, I know I'm older than you. He's like, but shit, I'm still learning too. Okay, Digga, you got me. But that's the reality of the situation that we're in. And the positions that are now vacant and open for others to come forward and fill. Everybody's looking for motivation. Motivation is that you're working with the prehistoric tribe. You're literally working with people that walked when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Like, seriously. My clan is a testament to that. That's where that name comes from. There's a lot of different names. There's a lot of different forms we have. We got panthers, eagles, birds. It's manka, it's medicine, it's belief. It's not something that, I guess it was just there, growing up. And that's like a lot of people. It's in your genetics. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, there was no one in the woods teaching me how to shoot squirrels, and do all these other things that we learned how to do as kids. Who jumps in a flooding creek, where trees are ripping down? I do. And they're, because we believed our dad. He said, oh, you guys swim whatever you want. That frick was up like 15 feet. He looked down and he's like, you damn idiots. He said, when we were coming down the creek like that, we were coming across that creek. Got to the other side, we were really laughing, We get back around. Oh, Dad was madder than hell at us. And I said, what? I said, that's Wazooki, we said, my dad's a Vietnam vet, so he learned how to tease at a real young age. Anyways. So we teased and laughing about that, but that's what we believed. When we went to Mechade school, it was real different for me. I think I got kicked out, expelled my first year kindergarten. I was one of those kids. No, you ain't ready for school. I barely spoke English, a naughty, I'd like to fight, you know, and then I didn't know what these other people were, because all I've ever was raised around was Ho Chunks. The only way I've seen these other people is like if we were at a Hardee's or something, going inside or a KFC, that's the only like exposure we had to other people, or at the powwow, you know. Then you would meet some Ojibways, which were always good people. And that's funny because that was my grandpa's. It was my grandpa that did that. He came down from Batter with a camper every year. And wherever he put that camper up, my dad and all his buddies, oh, look at little old Dana, they would call it. That's the reservation's name. That was what they'd say about my grandpa Jerry Cloud when he come down from Bad River. But that relationship was like that though, before I was born. So that too goes back to tell you that a lot of what we know isn't exactly what we need to know. Native American culture, Native American history starts here. I'm a middle-aged man. Well, maybe over the hill, 47. I don't know how you want to look at it. I have an elite elder sitting in here in attendance. I have a couple individuals that are definitely younger than me that are here. But perspectives are all different. Fran, we were out here talking just before I walked in when Jamie roped me into this. We were talking about different things, and I was saying, "Oh yeah, I'm here to get you, Fran." Oh yeah, you're late, and she'd come walking up. We were laughing, having a good time, good joke, you know. And I totally didn't expect to have to sit here and do this. And I appreciate Jamie you asking me to do this. Like honestly, I did not. Otherwise, I mean, you guys want to look at Facebook with me? So getting back to Ho Chunk though, just needed to clear my head a little bit. A little nervous. Um, this bottom over here, we have a place there, we call it Good Village, right? And there's an old man that lived down there, and his last name was Good Village. There's pictures of him over there in the executive office. Well, this was his land, and he had a wife, and they had daughters. Well, that's where that's how I'm related to a lot of families, just through that marriage. And her name was Louisa. And well, her descendant, Louisa Young Thunder, Eli Young Thunder Bunch, that's how I'm related to them. So then, well, Louisa was married to Frank. They had 2 children. And the reason I'm sharing this with you, and that was Alice and Peter, is because understanding where we come from is very important. That history, that oral history right there. When I was talking to my family, they said, I never heard of any of this. I said, what? So I'm telling my family this too. And they're like, wow. So it's like, I'm like, geez, I thought you guys knew this, because I knew this like for a long time, And I was like, holy shit. I guess, that does, you're out there doing this stuff, you're working for these elders. That's how I learned this. I was over down the road one day. His name was Jim Funmaker. We call him Jim Scanny. It's old. This guy drove everywhere, right? And I thought he was old when I was a kid, right? I grew up and he was still the same size, the same guy. His name was Jim Funmaker. That guy ran me off the road 3 times in my life, and he drove almost till the day he walked. Jim Scanny, yeah. Reason I'm sharing that is because that's who I learned a lot of things from, And what did I learn? How did I learn? No, well, that's for me. I learned it, right? But that's what I had to do. We weren't allowed to eat at people's houses. That was just a taboo thing. There's a story that goes with that, but we're not going to go down that one either. But I was talking about Jim. So, like, if you came in, he always had a fish or something laying out, and he always get you a glass of water, and he'd always offer you whatever food he had out, and then he'd give you something to do. Well, that's how his yard got cleaned every year. Hey boys, come here. You come by. Oh shit. Be outside raking, and you never said no. You weren't allowed to say no. You know, if Jim were to come up to the house and say, "Oh, hey, boy, you got a little shh." What boy? My dad would say, I probably wouldn't be here today. I mean, that's legit. You don't talk to your elders that way. You know, that's just Ho-Chunk, you know. And I'm gonna keep going back to that because I mean I don't know what else to say. What is the appropriate thing to tell people how to talk about us? Well, you can't really just tell them, well, this is no. Show them. Show them how beautiful we are. Show them what our singing is like. Show them what our lodges feel like spiritually. There could be NAC. I'm all about it. Right, come to the lodge, sit down. I got bowls. Ask Dire Wolf here. I gave him a bowl and spoon. Invited him in our lodge, sat him down with our group. He was my guest, Shook Junk. He's Wolf Clan. I didn't treat him as his people's Wolf Clan. I treated him as our Wolf Clan. That's why I gave him that name. Shook Junk Khate. Just big wolf. You see what I mean? Dire Wolf. And that's how I acknowledged him. And I invited him into our lodge. So I mean, these things, what I'm telling you, I mean, it's everybody, I shouldn't, well, if you have friends and you have an interest and you want to learn, there's always someone willing to teach you. Like I said, I can't say enough about heritage preservation. But you gotta understand that's an established program. That's like 40 years of hit and miss programming. Some things worked, some things didn't work. They just gotta figure this out, gotta figure that out. What Jamie's tasked to do is to get you guys to help identify with Native Americans. So what I'm trying to do is to let you know, when you think of Ho-Chunk, we're not really that different. You can ask Michael. You know, I stand on what I talk about. You know, you can ask Fran. I'm never disrespectful. You know, I carry myself how you see me every day. I laugh, I joke, I kid, I poke, I prod, but that's Ho-Chunk. So I'm glad you guys gave me your attention. I hope it was productive. If you guys have any questions, I mean, I know we were all over the place, but I'll give it my best shot to answer anything you guys have to say. Otherwise, I'm good. And I thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
Does anybody online have anything that they would like to ask Curtis?
All right. If you guys want to learn, come see me. If you have a question, ask it. You don't want to sound silly, then email it. Curtis.redbird@hochunk-.com. You know, I'm here. I'm not going to say no. I'm not, I'm getting ready to start a camp. I mean, honestly, and it's going to be intrinsic. It's going to be pretty good. It's going to eventually be full immersion. We're working out some other logistics. I'd like to do day pay for everybody that attends. You know, I like to do a lot of different things, but I mean, yeah, eventually it'll be there.
I have a question for you, Curtis. So back when I went to college many years ago, so taking sustainability back in school, for Native Americans, do you believe in that, or do you follow that, like thinking of the decisions and the impacts that we have now, and thinking of that 7 generations ahead, the effects that it's going to have?
You know, from this generation, and I say this all the time to my children and my family, is that I'm going to leave this world. And even if my constituents in the city and the county, they all thought that it was something I was doing or saying for votes. It's not. I plan on leaving this world a better place than I found it. My dad told me when I was a child, the world speaks English. That's why you have to speak English. That's what I was told. So I stopped speaking Ho-Chunk and I learned English. Can sustainability happen? Well, you first have to start living that way. It's not a question of can I live that way? Well, you can. You just have to live that way. I don't live the perfect life. I'm not a perfect person. I don't go to church every Sunday. I gamble. You know, every now and then I have a beer. I hunt. You know, when I was a kid, I fought. You know, physical fights. I've been in trouble with the law. I've been up and down, you know, thick and thin. But, you know, I never wavered off of who I was. Because, like my dad said, no matter where you go in life, you're Ho-Chunk. I was up in Bad River. I'm known as Haga. They call me Haga. And, you know Curtis Redbird? Who? Haga. Oh, yeah, I know Haga. I'm like, I'm Haga. You know, that's just how they know me up there. And, you know, LCO, it's the same thing. I'm Haga. Here in Black River Falls, they call me Haga. You know, or Curtis. No one ever actually uses my Ho-Chunk name except for me. You know, but that's what I'm saying is that the more common we make that, the easier it is for others to follow. If you're not willing to walk that path, how can you help others achieve success when they walk it? You know, I'm all for education. I could have an associate's. I just being lazy and haven't filed the paperwork to get the actual thing. You know, I went to college a little bit online. You know, but that's what it comes back down to at the end of the day. You know, in this month they proclaimed a month, and it's like my dad Andy said, every day is a Ho-Chunk day because there is no other days. Why can't there be any other days? Because I don't know any other. I'm just Ho-Chunk. So to me, every day is Ho-Chunk day. You know, my identity is Ho-Chunk. My dad was Ho-Chunk. You know, my mom's people, they're from Bad River. And I'm okay with that. I love them. Shit. Those are my people too, to an extent, you know, and I respect them. But at the end of the night, in the morning when I get up, some people can say they can pick and choose. But if you're Ho-Chunk, you're Ho-Chunk. And you know, we didn't even talk about the Warrior Society. We didn't talk about a lot of different things that we could have discussed that everybody probably has questions about.
Sounds like you want to come back.
Right?
Right? Session number 2.
Yeah, and you know, that's what it comes, but when you think about it, at the end of the day, that's all any of us can really attempt to be is a better person. And that's what a Ho-Chunk is. And that's what they're supposed to be doing is attempting to be better people every day. And that's a teaching. They don't preach anymore. That's something that they don't talk about anymore. You know, they expect kids just to know these things. Children learn by example. The thing I learned in youth services is that if I didn't learn something at the end of each day from one of my children, then what was I doing? I'm there to work for those kids. I'm there to work with those kids. So the life lessons that they taught me every day, the unconditional love, the eagerness to learn, you know, that's feed that in yourselves. Even if you don't know something, don't tell somebody else they're wrong. Learn with them. It's okay. I don't know shit either. Oh, I mean, I don't know anything either. But it doesn't ever stop me from trying. It never stops me. It doesn't limit me in my life at all, because no matter what, every day I got to get up and try. And I learned that when we fought cancer. Every day was a chore to get up. Every day hurt. Every day, let's talk about cancer, Curtis. It's probably what's, but no. The point is that you learn to live every day with purpose. Because you learn to appreciate every day, because not every day is granted. Not every day, you're not promised tomorrow. Even you, healthy people that have never experienced this, you're not promised tomorrow either. When he calls, we go. That's it. We hold our mourners up. We hold our families together. We hold in peace and sing and pray. Because this is what we do for those that are left, those that are still here. This is why we pray. And that's Ho Chunk. So, on that note, happy Indigenous Peoples Month and happy Ho Chunk Day every day. Thank you, guys.
Pinagigi, Curtis, thank you for stepping in and sharing with us today. Just a reminder that today's session is recorded. It's recorded, Curtis. We can play this over and over and over again. This will be on our Facebook page and the Department of Health website. Everybody have a great rest of your day.